Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are unpacking the deeply chilling visual atmosphere and the intense psychological traps inside a supposedly perfect Long Island mansion. We're going to be looking at the architecture of deception and the gripping story of the housemaid. Honestly, it's an absolute masterclass in how polished, pristine surfaces can hide some truly horrifying realities.
Okay, let's just dive right into this immediate, visceral warning that sets the entire claustrophobic tone of the story, way before we even meet the true monster. Imagine stepping into your new bedroom and seeing this. A window painted shut, scratches on the inside of the heavy door, and a lock on the outside. Right from the jump, it is the ultimate locked box reality.
Notice the really sharp, atmospheric juxtaposition here. Downstairs, you've got this pristine luxury, right? Spotless marble, gleaming chandeliers, a space that looks exactly like a high-end interior design showroom. But walk up a steep, narrow stairway to the top floor, and boom, you are hit with this gritty, deeply claustrophobic attic. A tiny cot, a mini fridge holding 3 sad water bottles. It's a brilliant visual metaphor for the entire narrative, glossy and inviting on the outside, but a literal prison on the inside.
Act 1. The Polished Facade.
We kick things off with Millie, who is deeply, truly desperate. She's officially hit rock bottom, she just got fired by a screaming diner manager with marinara on his tie, and she's literally living in her car in 38-degree weather. So when she arrives at this pristine illusion of a Long Island mansion for a job interview, she's greeted by a terrifyingly perfect tableau. The family's character designs act as this immediate, unsettling mask of wealth and compliance. I mean, look at the Winchesters. Nina is elegant, icy, and wears all white, almost like she's completely allergic to color or warmth. Andrew, her husband, is tall, polished, sympathetic, and handsome. You know, the smooth corporate savior. And Cecilia, their 9-year-old daughter, she's dressed entirely in lace, basically looking like a Victorian ghost child who acts like she owns the place. Visually, it's a terrifyingly perfect facade.
But as you'll see, that spotless environment gets punctured pretty quickly. Enzo, the serious landscaper in his worn-out boots, delivers this incredibly chilling Italian warning to Millie as she leaves the interview. Pericolo. Danger. It acts as this sudden narrative jump scare in an otherwise perfectly manicured setting. You kind of have to ask yourself, why is the groundskeeper looking at this beautiful home and warning a total stranger to run?
Well, Nina immediately starts to weaponize her wardrobe and her wealth. She hands Millie a bag of her old white dresses, feigning this sweet sisterly kindness, saying, "Oh, they just don't fit me anymore." But guys, it's a meticulously set stage. Later on, Nina lifts that exact same bag like it's radioactive, completely melting down and screaming that Millie is stealing from her. She brilliantly creates a dynamic where the word of a rich white-clad lady is always going to effortlessly crush a desperate maid.
And Nina holds the ultimate trump card, 10. That number represents the 10 years Millie actually spent in prison for killing a boy who tried to assault her best friend. One single moment of defensive violence cost her a decade of her life. So, over dinner one night, Nina casually drops a bomb. So, what kind of food did they serve in prison? Bam! The facade completely shatters. Nina knows everything, and Millie realizes she is entirely at her mercy.
Act 2. The Descent.
The narrative totally snaps right here. After Nina seemingly stages this Oscar-worthy mental breakdown and leaves the house, Andrew's sympathetic mask falls away, and he replaces it with this intoxicating protective allure. Millie actually thinks she's stepped into the life she was supposed to have, falling into bed with the handsome boss. But that beautiful marble mansion is suddenly gone. She wakes up, and she's been thrust into the dark, locked box reality of the attic. Her phone? Gone. That heavy door? Locked from the outside. She didn't win the handsome CEO. She was played, and she walked blindly right into a horrifying trap.
Act 3. The Classroom of Shame.
Okay, so the story violently pivots again, hitting rewind to reveal a massive perspective shift. We learn that Nina isn't actually an unstable, erratic woman at all. No, she is the brilliant architect of a meticulously orchestrated escape plan. Just track her harrowing descent and rise here. Years ago, she was a desperate, broke 20-something, humiliated at work, until Andrew swooped in offering tissues and a ring. Months ago, she was a trapped, gaslit wife locked in that very same attic. But today? She is a tactical genius outsmarting her abuser. She was quite literally playing a long game in high heels the entire time.
To really understand Nina's desperation, we have to look at Andrew's sadistic mechanics of control.
They are terrifyingly methodical, specifically designed to slowly break Nina's mind while preserving his own polished public image. Step 1. Lock her in the attic for minor mistakes, turning it into a private classroom of shame. Step 2. Total psychological warfare, drugging his wife and daughter and actually placing the baby in a tub of running water. Step 3. Calling the cops to have Nina institutionalized as a delusional danger to her own child.
And the visceral physical abuse going on behind closed doors is just staggering. Look at this number, 100. Andrew once forced Nina to pluck 100 perfect strands of her own hair just as a punishment for messy root growth. Think about that. It wasn't just about locking her in a room, it was about degrading her physical autonomy in the most painful, meticulous, and agonizing way possible.
Which brings us to a huge, vital question. If Nina and Enzo the landscaper wanted to take Andrew down, why did she deliberately recruit a maid with a sealed criminal record for violence? Well, Nina picked Millie very carefully because she knew they couldn't ever beat Andrew's wealth in a courtroom. They needed bait. And Millie wasn't just a desperate maid. She was a loaded weapon left on the table. She was a woman who knew exactly what it meant to be locked up, and more importantly, how to survive it.
Act 4. Poetic Justice. We return to the present moment, back to that gritty attic where Millie is trapped. But this time, the dynamic is entirely different. The abused are the ones holding the keys to the kingdom. When Millie wakes up, Andrew is there. He casually stacks 3 heavy books on her stomach and sets a timer for 3 hours. Calm and smiling, he tells her that if she twitches or breathes too loudly, the timer resets. It's this visceral, torturous boot camp designed by a pure sadist to completely break her spirit.
But Andrew forgot one absolutely crucial detail: Nina's foresight. Millie reaches for the pepper spray that Nina secretly left for her. So, as Andrew leans in, really savoring his power trip, Millie just blasts him. He stumbles back, screaming in agony, eyes on fire. And in that moment of pure burning chaos, the power dynamic in the house shifts instantly and permanently.
Slipping out the door, Millie uses a secret key Nina also left behind to lock it. 6. Millie leaves Andrew to stew in that claustrophobic attic for 6 whole days. The polished CEO who obsessed over cleanliness and absolute control is reduced to a pile of stench, sweat, and desperate begging over those 6 glorious days.
And honestly, karma finally catches up with Andrew. When Nina returns and they call the authorities, the cops actually rule Andrew's death an accident. Why? Well, because the lead detective on the scene takes one look around and writes it off, largely because his own daughter had once been engaged to the toxic Andrew. Andrew's own web of broken, ruined relationships is ultimately what gets used against him to close the case. But if you really want to know how a monster is made, you just have to look at the funeral. Andrew's mother leans in and whispers to Nina, with a literal smile on her face, that Andrew is missing 4 teeth. She gleefully admits that she used to yank them out of his head with pliers as a form of childhood discipline if he ever skipped brushing.
This chilling revelation shows us that Andrew didn't just sprout from nowhere as a polished sadist in a tailored suit. He was a monster handcrafted by his own mother with a toothbrush and a pair of pliers. The psychological horror running through that pristine mansion was generational. But thankfully, because of the combined strength of Nina and Millie, that cycle is broken.
And that right there is the very definition of poetic justice, experiencing a fitting or deserved retribution for one's actions. Nina and her daughter Cecilia vanished to California for a totally clean slate, proving that in a world where extreme wealth can usually buy the law, sometimes poetic justice is the absolute only true justice you can get.
Fast forward a few weeks later, Millie is sitting on another sofa in another pristine suburban living room, interviewing for a new job. Major déjà vu, right? But then she spots something visceral that cuts right through the designer upholstery. A dark, fingerprint-shaped bruise on the arm of the terrified woman interviewing her, Lisa. It entirely cements Millie's transformation from a desperate victim to an avenging savior.
When Lisa looks nervously down the hallway and whispers, "Can you help me?" the old Millie probably would have just kept her head down. But this Millie, she smiles a sharp, knowing smile and says, yes. So what you should take away from this explainer is this. Millie has found a dark new calling inside these wealthy, deceptive households. So I'll leave you with this. Who will be the next monster to fall? It's a provocative thought and a pretty solid reminder to always look past the polished facade. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning what you see.